Let me ask you something today. Have you ever wondered why it feels like nobody truly understands you? Why, no matter how kind, loving, or loyal you are, you still find yourself walking through life without a crowd of friends by your side? My friend, if that's you, I want you to know this truth. Sometimes the very reason you have so few friends, or none at all, is because you are chosen by God. And being chosen comes with separation. When God sets you apart, the process doesn't always look the way you imagine it would. Many of us expect divine calling to come with applause, with people celebrating us, with opportunities lining up perfectly in front of us. But more often than not, the first sign that God has chosen you isn't celebration, it's separation. You start noticing that certain relationships no longer feel the same. Conversations that once flowed easily now feel heavy. People who once enjoyed your company begin to distance themselves, and even the environments where you used to fit in suddenly feel uncomfortable. It's not that you have changed in ways that make you unworthy of connection. It's that God is moving you to a different level, and in order to elevate you, He first has to separate you. You see, separation is God's strategy. It may appear painful in the moment, but it is purposeful in the long run. Think about the seasons of life when you felt the sting of rejection or the emptiness of loneliness. Those aren't wasted seasons. They are designed by heaven to remind you that you cannot carry everyone with you into the future God has prepared. The higher the calling, the smaller the circle. You can't live a chosen life while trying to keep the comfort of the crowd. God knows that if you stay surrounded by too many voices, you will be tempted to listen to them instead of Him. That is why He pulls you away, not because you aren't loved, but because you are deeply loved, and He wants to protect what He placed inside of you. When you're chosen, your destiny is different. You weren't created to blend in with everyone else. That's why no matter how much you try, you can't seem to follow the same patterns as the crowd. Other people may indulge in things that God simply will not allow you to touch. They may get away with behaviors, lifestyles, and mindsets that your spirit cannot tolerate. And the reason is simple. Your path is set apart. You cannot run with the crowd and walk with Christ at the same time. If you ever feel torn between the desire to fit in and the call to stand out, remember that being chosen means you will never truly feel at home in the world's systems. You weren't made for them. You were made for something higher. The loneliness of separation may tempt you to question yourself. You might find yourself wondering, why don't I fit in? Why do I always feel different? Why is it so hard to hold on to friendships that used to mean so much to me? Those are honest questions, but the answers are not found in self-blame. The answer is that you weren't created to fit into every space, every circle, every group. You were created for divine purpose, and divine purpose requires divine alignment. Some people can't go with you because their presence would delay your growth. Some conversations you can no longer entertain because they would distract you from your mission. Some environments you can no longer thrive in because they would suffocate the seed God has planted within you. And so, in His wisdom, God begins to quietly separate you, not because you are unworthy of companionship, but because your destiny demands clarity. It's important to see separation not as punishment, but as preparation. When God pulls people out of your life, He is not leaving you empty. He is clearing space so He can pour into you Himself. Think about a runner who is preparing for a marathon. To finish well, that runner cannot carry extra weight. Every ounce of unnecessary baggage has to be stripped away so they can run with endurance. The same is true for you. Separation is God's way of removing the weight of distractions, unhealthy attachments, and spiritual dead ends, so you can run the race marked out for you. What feels like rejection is really redirection. What feels like isolation is really insulation from harm you can't even see yet. That's why chosen people are often misunderstood. To the outside world, it may look like they are loners, or that they are antisocial, or even that they are unwanted. But in reality, chosen people are protected, they are shielded, they are set apart. The very loneliness that others see as weakness is the soil where God plants strength, wisdom, and clarity. While the crowd is busy chasing popularity, the chosen are being trained in private. While others are distracted by noise, the chosen are learning to recognize the voice of God. And while the world is searching for validation, the chosen are being prepared to walk in purpose without needing applause. Now listen carefully, because this is where so many people get discouraged. Friendship is not just about having someone to spend time with, to text during the day, or to hang out with on the weekends. True friendship runs much deeper than casual connection. At its core, friendship is about agreement, about walking together in unity of spirit, about sharing a direction and a foundation that holds steady when life gets hard. That's why Scripture says, "How can two walk together unless they agree?" If the people in your circle do not share your vision, your faith, or your sense of calling, the relationship will eventually become a weight instead of a blessing. It's not that they are bad people or that you are better than them. It's simply that your paths are not aligned. And when your paths are not aligned, one of two things will happen. Either you will feel constant pressure to compromise who you are in order to keep them, or you will keep pressing forward, and they will quietly fall away. When God has placed a calling on your life, He is not going to allow everyone to have access to you. Some people cannot see what God is doing in you, so they try to pull you back into the patterns they understand. They may think they are giving advice or offering guidance, but in truth, they are speaking from a place of limitation. If you keep too many voices around you that don't understand your purpose, they will drain you, distract you, and discourage you from staying the course. And because God knows how valuable your mission is, He will not allow those voices to remain loud in your life. That's why you notice people suddenly losing interest, or relationships slowly fading. It's not because something is wrong with you, it's because God is protecting you from the wrong influences. Think about the seasons where you felt misunderstood by friends who just didn't get you. Maybe you shared your dreams and they laughed, or you opened up about your faith and they dismissed it, or you explained your goals and they told you to be more realistic. Those moments sting, but they reveal something important. Not everyone has the capacity to carry what God has placed in you. Real friends don't just entertain you, they encourage you. Real friends don't just tolerate your calling, they celebrate it. Real friends don't compete with your assignment, they complement it. And when the people around you can't offer that, God will start removing them so that you can walk with clarity and focus. This is why chosen ones often appear to be loners. They aren't without friends because they are antisocial or unworthy. They are without friends because their mission requires a level of focus that most people can't understand. When your spirit is aligned with heaven, you can't afford to spend all your time around people whose hearts are tied only to the world. You cannot expect someone who doesn't see what God is doing in you to support where He's taking you. That's why separation happens. It's not just about leaving people behind. It's about making sure you don't let the wrong people walk into the future with you. It's not easy to accept this. There are days when you will wish for companionship, for someone to share the weight of your journey. But you have to trust that God knows what He's doing. Every time He removes someone, He is making room for divine alignment. Sometimes that alignment will come through one or two people who truly understand your heart and stand by you. Other times, that alignment will mean that God Himself fills the space until the right support system arrives. Either way, you are never left empty. God will never strip something from your life without having a reason to do it. When you are chosen, your life is a journey that requires discernment. You cannot afford to let just anyone speak into your spirit, because words have power. If you're constantly surrounded by people who doubt you, who drain you, or who don't understand your direction, their words can take root and choke out the faith that God is building in you. That's why He separates. He is preserving your focus, your clarity, and your assignment. If your circle is small, it's not because you are forgotten. It's because God has drawn a hedge of protection around your purpose, so that nothing and no one can derail it. Let me be real with you for a moment. Loneliness is one of the hardest experiences a person can face. Nobody wakes up in the morning hoping to feel isolated, to sit in silence with no one to call, no one to lean on, no one to share the day's ups and downs with. Human beings were designed for connection, and so when connection seems scarce, the emptiness can feel unbearable. But what most people don't realize is that loneliness, as painful as it feels, can also be one of God's most powerful tools to draw His chosen ones closer to Him. When the phone doesn't ring, when the invitations dry up, when friends fade away and the noise of social interaction disappears, that is when you can finally hear the still, small voice of God more clearly than ever before. In those moments when it seems like no one understands you or no one wants to walk with you, God is teaching you dependence. He is training your spirit to lean on Him in a way that you never would if you had a crowd surrounding you. Because when you have plenty of friends and plenty of support, it is easy to rely on their encouragement, their words, their company. But when they are absent, you discover the one constant presence that has been there all along, the presence of the Lord. Loneliness has a way of stripping away false security, so that you can learn where your true security lies. It is in the quiet places of isolation that God does His deepest work. Think about the people throughout Scripture whom God used mightily. Moses spent years in the wilderness before leading Israel. David was alone with his sheep before facing Goliath. Elijah hid by the brook before confronting kings. And even Jesus withdrew to lonely places to pray. Again and again, we see that seasons of loneliness precede seasons of power. Why? Because when you are alone with God, there are no distractions, no competing voices, no temptation to seek approval from others. There is only you and Him, and it is in that intimacy that He shapes your heart, strengthens your faith, and prepares you for the assignment ahead. Of course, the process is rarely comfortable. Loneliness can feel like rejection. It can feel like you've been abandoned or overlooked. But the truth is, it is often a sign of God's favor. He loves you too much to let your growth be stunted by constant dependence on people. So He allows seasons where people walk away, where doors close, where you sit in silence and wonder why life feels so empty. And yet, if you look closely, you'll notice that in those very moments, you are more aware of His presence. You begin to pray differently. Your worship becomes deeper, not because of a crowd, but because you've encountered Him personally. The tears you shed in loneliness become the prayers that move heaven. The silence that feels unbearable becomes the space where his voice grows unmistakable. This is where chosen ones are refined. Loneliness becomes the classroom where God teaches trust. It becomes the furnace where faith is purified. It becomes the training ground where spiritual muscles are built. While the world is out chasing popularity, God is pulling you aside to teach you perseverance, to strengthen your ability to stand firm, and to prepare you to carry weight that others cannot. If you never walked through loneliness, you would never discover how strong you truly are when Christ is your foundation. There's also another layer to this truth. Sometimes God allows loneliness not just to teach you dependence, but to clear the stage of your heart so that He can be the main presence in your life. If your schedule is always filled with people, if your emotions are always tied up in relationships, you may not have the space to give Him your undivided attention. So in His wisdom, He removes what distracts so He can have what He deserves. Your focus, your devotion, your love. What feels like emptiness to you is actually sacred space He has created to fill with His Spirit. And here is something few talk about. Loneliness also prepares you to value relationships the right way when they do come. When you've been through seasons where no one was there but God, you learn not to idolize people when they show up. You no longer cling to them for validation because you've already been validated by your Creator. You no longer fear losing them because you know the one who promised never to leave you or forsake you. Loneliness teaches you that people are a blessing, but they are not your source. God alone is your source, and when you live from that reality, every friendship that comes into your life becomes healthier, freer, and more God-centered. See, one of the hardest truths to accept about being chosen is that God doesn't let you have everything the way you want it. If you had a crowd around you cheering for you every step of the way, clapping at your victories, celebrating your progress, and constantly telling you how amazing you are, it would be so easy to start leaning on their voices instead of His. You would begin to measure your worth by their approval and your direction by their applause. But God, in His wisdom, refuses to let you build your faith on a shaky foundation. He reduces your circle on purpose, because when the circle shrinks, your dependence on Him grows. The smaller the circle becomes, the stronger your faith has the chance to be. When there aren't as many people to call, when there aren't as many shoulders to lean on, when the crowd isn't there to lift you up, that's when you discover the depth of your own prayer life. You start to realize that you can take your burdens directly to God, and He listens. You begin to trust Him more because you have no other option. And with every lonely night and every tear shed in private, your faith grows roots that can't be shaken by the storms of life. If you always had people around to catch you, you would never learn how securely God holds you. If you always had people affirming your every move, you would never discover how steady His word is when everything else is uncertain. Think of it like this. When a tree is planted in open ground with no support beams, the winds force it to grow deeper roots to survive. But if the tree is surrounded by props holding it up, it doesn't need to dig as deep. Your faith works the same way. If your life is always propped up by people, you don't dig into God. But when He takes those supports away, suddenly you realize that He's been training you all along to become unshakable. Fewer friends, fewer props, fewer voices means stronger roots, stronger prayer, stronger reliance on the only one who never fails. It's also worth noticing how easily people can become idols without us even realizing it. We think of idols as statues or false gods, but sometimes the idol in our lives is simply the approval of others. Sometimes the idol is the security we feel in belonging to a group. And God, who is jealous for your heart, knows that He cannot allow anything to take His place in your life. That's why He reduces your circle. He's reminding you, I am enough. And when you start living from that truth, you experience a freedom that people can't give you and people can't take away. And it isn't just about faith becoming stronger in theory. It's about becoming stronger in practice. When your circle is small, you learn how to pray without someone else leading you. You learn how to encourage yourself when nobody else is there to say the word. You learn how to stand firm when the only voice cheering you on is the voice of God speaking through Scripture. This training may feel harsh, but it equips you for moments in life where you'll need to stand on faith alone. Because there will come a day when the opinions of others won't be able to guide you, when their words won't be enough to comfort you, and when their presence won't be able to sustain you. In that moment, the strength you built in isolation will carry you through. Another reason God allows smaller circles is to protect your heart from relying on the wrong kind of support. Not every hand that claps for you wants to see you win. Not every smile hides pure intentions. Sometimes the larger your circle, the more room there is for betrayal, jealousy, and distraction. By reducing your circle, God shields you from unnecessary wounds and keeps your focus on Him. With fewer voices around, you can discern His voice more clearly. With fewer relationships to maintain, you can devote more energy to growing spiritually. What feels like a loss socially is often a gain spiritually. There is a strange but undeniable strength that comes when you learn to walk with God in seasons of solitude. You may not have a lot of people to text good news to, but you learn to take it straight to Him in prayer. You may not always have friends to lean on when you're weary, but you find out that His presence is more comforting than any words someone else could give. Slowly you realize that even when you feel like standing alone, you are never truly alone. And when you can carry that truth inside you, when it's not just words but an unshakable conviction, your faith becomes unmovable in ways it never could have if the crowd had stayed with you. Don't mistake isolation for insignificance. Just because your life doesn't look crowded, just because you don't have a wide circle of friends, just because you spend more nights in quiet than in company, that doesn't mean you don't carry value. In fact, many times the opposite is true. When you are chosen, when God has His hand on your life, He will often keep your path narrow. Crowds don't walk on narrow roads, and chosen ones don't need the validation of many voices to confirm who they are. What matters most is not who's walking beside you, but who's living inside you, and the presence of God within you gives you more value than the approval of 1,000 people. Even Jesus, the very Son of God, walked this truth out. He was surrounded by multitudes at times, but when it came to His most critical moments, He was left alone. The same disciples who swore they would never abandon Him were the ones who fell asleep when He needed them most, the ones who denied Him when the pressure rose, the ones who fled when the cross came near, yet none of that stopped Him from fulfilling His purpose. His identity wasn't tied to who stayed or who left, but to the mission He came to complete. If the Savior of the world experienced betrayal, denial, and abandonment, why would we believe our journey would be any different? The chosen walk a lonely road not because they are unloved, but because their assignment cannot be carried by the masses. When you live this reality, you begin to see your seasons of having no friends differently. Instead of looking at them as punishment, you start to recognize them as pruning. God removes so that you can grow. He clears space so that His glory can shine through you without distraction. He allows the silence around you so that His voice within you can rise above every other. What looks like a loss to the world is actually gain in the kingdom. Every friendship you don't have makes more room for Him to be your closest companion. Every crowd that walks away positions you to stand more firmly in His truth. And here is what you must never forget. Your worth is not determined by your circle. Your worth is determined by your Creator. The number of friends you have does not define the depth of your calling. The applause of people does not measure the strength of your purpose. 0 friends does not equal 0 value. In fact, it often means the opposite. You carry something so significant that God will not allow you to be distracted or diminished by the wrong company. You are guarded because you are chosen. You are protected because you are precious. You are hidden because the time for your revealing has not yet come. So if you find yourself walking a lonely path, don't hang your head in shame. Lift it in confidence. If you look around and see no one walking with you, remember that heaven is still surrounding you. The absence of people is not the absence of God. The rejection of man is not the rejection of heaven. You are still called. You are still anointed. You are still chosen. And here is the conclusion you must hold on to. Being chosen will sometimes feel like walking alone, but you are never truly alone. The same God who parted seas, who shut the mouths of lions, who walked in the fire, who raised the dead, is the same God walking with you right now. His presence outweighs the presence of 1,000 friends. His approval is greater than the applause of a crowd. His companionship is deeper than any human relationship could ever be. So stand tall in your season of solitude, because it is not a curse. It is a calling. And when you embrace that truth, you will find that the very loneliness you feared has become the very place where God proves He is all you need.